freedom. American Family Radio.
As a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign by designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037. You help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to unveil more of her economic plan in Pittsburgh today, even as the mainstream media starts to press her for answers.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid.
What about, like, here are the 5 things I'm going to do directly for you?
The other side's done 40 or 50 interviews with J.D. Vance. I don't have to take my shoes off to count on my fingers and toes how many interviews that she's done. And that looks like a deliberate effort just not to face the hard questions.
Nationally televised hour-long debate is one way to answer a lot of direct questions.
So it's just sitting down with an interview.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump has a specific plan, and a large part of that involves manufacturing.
My plan is for a manufacturing renaissance, which will be a 15% made in America tax rate. We will put a 100% tariff on every single car coming across the Mexican border. I will bring automobile manufacturing back to the highest level in the history of our country.
The Senate Homeland Security Committee has released their report on the first attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania. Senator Rand Paul says the assassination attempts on Trump were foreseeable and preventable.
We have to get it right. We have to, if we can't even stop the random guy who's camping outside the golf course, if we can't do a good job of that, how are we going to stop a sophisticated assassination attempt by a foreign country? So we've got to do a much better job. But, we released the report today of what we've seen so far with the first assassination attempt. And it's a compilation. It's a tragedy of errors, just one after another.
Trump transition team co-chair Tulsi Gabbard claiming the danger to Trump could be greater.
It is deeply disturbing to see that, Iran is supporting these assassination attempts, but they're not the only ones. We know that the drug cartels, that any of these entities that President Trump is a threat to their existence, they are trying to take him out.
Kamala Harris is reportedly planning a trip to the southern border as border security proves to be a key issue for voters. Texas Republican Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is critical of the Biden administration's record on illegal immigration.
If their goal was to have terrorists and criminals and just millions of people coming into our country illegally and giving them a pass and not knowing where they're going or who they are or what crimes they're committing, then they've been very effective. She is conning the American people. She hasn't changed her position at all. I mean, she says she hasn't changed her values, and her values were to get rid of ICE. Her values were to decriminalize people crossing the border illegally.
Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado has introduced a new bill to curb human trafficking. Chris Woodward has more.
The Human Trafficking Fingerprint Background Check Protection Act would require owners and employees of massage wellness spas to undergo fingerprint-based background checks to mitigate the risk of human trafficking and enhance public safety. Boebert said in a press release that massage wellness spas have been identified by law enforcement as one of the primary locations for criminals engaged in human trafficking, and this simple but effective measure would help close one of the primary avenues used by traffickers to exploit children and other vulnerable individuals. I'm Chris Woodward.
Florida and the Southeast bracing for Tropical Storm Helene, which officials say could develop into a Category 3 hurricane, which could bring potentially deadly storm surge. St. Petersburg, Florida Mayor Kenneth Welch says the time to prepare is now.
We are under a state of local emergency, and we are anticipating impacts from this storm to start late Wednesday night with the major impacts on Thursday. Please stay off the roads when we start to experience severe weather.
Helene is the 8th named storm of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. The National Hurricane Center expects it to become a major hurricane as it approaches Florida's Big Bend region. More news available online at afn.net. and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
Tired of campaign ads, candidate rhetoric, and a mailbox full of flyers? Are you thinking of sitting out this election? Don't do it. As Christians, it's our responsibility to be salt and light. How can we influence our nation for godly values if we don't make our voices heard? Show your support for candidates who share our biblical values by voting wisely. Use iVoterGuide.com as a free tool to help you identify those candidates. Be a good steward of your vote on November the 5th. Vote wisely with iVoterGuide.com.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues. That's the name of this program. Right here on American Family Radio. Today's Wednesday, September the 25th, 2024. Joining me in studios, Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley, good morning. Wesley Wildman.
Good morning.
And Fred Jackson's back in saddle.
Yes, I am. Early Merry Christmas to you all.
Well,
early Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
3 months from today?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
25th.
Yeah, you get past August, you get into the Christmas season.
Yeah.
July in some place. I've
Yeah.
seen it.
Well, I've joked before, and it wasn't a joke. About 3 years ago, you remember me mentioning in August of that year going into Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You go to, we were there recently.
They got their Christmas stuff
Christmas
out.
is exploding. Sam's Christmas is exploding.
Oh, Sam's is at it, too?
Oh, yeah.
And that's with all the Halloween stuff.
Yeah,
That
right next,
Yes.
right next to each other.
Yeah, yep.
Well, in our economy, though, on one side of Christmas, you do have to start planning if anybody's going to get any gifts.
Yes.
With the inflation's like it is, because you have to budget.
Well,
that or just don't get anything.
Hey, listen, back in the day, son, when I was a kid.
That's right.
Tell you what my parents did.
Expectation.
I got like 2 gifts, maybe.
Yeah.
And we were po.
$25 max.
We were po folk. My dad was a preacher, and they didn't pay him squat. And I'm gonna name the church. And and this my parents gave us in our stockings.
Yeah.
And I'm not being critical because they did the best they could.
Right. I feel like you are.
No, and many people identify with this, but so we get our stockings down from the mantle, the fireplace mantle.
Yeah.
On Christmas morning, and I got an orange.
This is all you got.
Well, no, I got an apple.
Oh, God. No, I mean, this is
No. I got a gift under the tree
Okay.
from Santa Claus.
Right.
Okay. But I'm talking about Santa Claus. Wink, wink. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Okay. I need to get into that, do I?
Yeah.
No, but
you kind of got in. You need to get out right
Okay.
now.
All right. So anyway, apple, orange, and some like Hershey's Kisses and some peppermint sticker, which is nice. It's fun to open, but I mean, today kids get a Rolex watch.
Yes.
A
Switch, Nintendo Switch.
No,
not ashes and switches.
Let me.
What did you get in your stocking?
I'm gonna beat you all.
Okay.
All your stories will pale in comparison with my sad sack story that I'm about to tell you. Okay.
Okay.
I want to hear this.
You're gonna feel bad for me after I tell this story.
All right.
No.
Now this is before we moved up here to this area. I was in the ministry, and my kids were on the angel tree. That's how bad off. I'm not
like
kidding.
the mall?
No.
They walk by,
No.
Well, they walk by. People walk by and pick off an angel.
The church had an angel tree.
Oh, the church.
And my kids were on it. We could not afford Christmas gifts.
It's just the way it is. Was.
I mean, that's how little I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are some televangelists and stuff who do very well in the ministry. But there are a lot of pastors out there who actually do sacrifice a lot.
Well, listen, I don't want to insinuate my childhood was spent in poverty,
right?
Because it wasn't. My dad was a pastor, but he also was very industrious. He wrote books. He led tours. He did other things to
supplement
the
And that was only 1 year for my kids.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, I don't have any of those stories, thanks
Yeah,
to my
beat that,
parents.
Wesley.
All right. So
let me just toss this in.
One more thing.
For those of you who are doing pretty well this year, as we have 3 months left, find somebody you can help.
Yeah.
Amen.
Start setting aside money for somebody that you can help, somebody you know that's going to be struggling this Christmas.
Amen. Absolutely. Amen. Well, a lot to talk about, let's see, who we got Abraham Hamilton III on at the bottom of the hour.
Yes.
We've all heard the name George Soros, haven't we?
Yes.
You know, he's a famous chef, and he's on TV. No, he's a internationally recognized.
He's a billionaire,
socialist, billionaire, far lefty, who funds a lot of terrible organizations. All right, we all know that. But we're gonna talk to Abraham Hamilton III because, well, we'll get a maybe a more sophisticated profile of George Soros from Abe than what I just gave. But also, it was reported that George Soros is buying a lot of radio stations in America. Is that right?
We understand, yes, he's buying 200 radio stations. Now, this is
one fell swoop?
In one fell swoop, yes.
And there is a Democrat-appointed commissioner on the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. There are 5 commissioners, and there's always 2 appointed by each political party, and then whoever's in office, that's the political party
in the
that
White
gets
House.
in the White House, yes, that gets the 3-2.
Yes.
And there is one of the commissioners is. It seems like we're going to talk to Abe that maybe rules are being bent to allow Soros to come in and snap up these radio
Buy them
stations.
quickly.
Yes, and part of the issue is that only 25% of radio stations in America can be owned by someone from another country.
Yes.
So anyway, this is going to be an interesting conversation. And George Soros is with his Open Society Foundations, is a globalist.
Yes.
He intensely dislikes America, thinks we're standing in the way of globalist agendas. And my personal opinion is I think he's doing everything he can to, let's put it in a nice way, change America.
Yeah. Well, he funds a lot of these progressive prosecutors,
right?
The far left prosecutors that we have seen around the country. Yeah. He funds their campaigns.
The ones who don't prosecute.
Yes.
The criminals.
Yes.
We've also seen, we're obviously a radio network of 170 plus stations, and we've seen just working in meetings how long, even if you have the money,
right,
the process and how long it takes just to get one station up.
Right.
And so for him to be able to do 200.
Now, he's not building them from the ground.
That's right.
He's just buying them from somebody.
I do understand that, and that's a good clarification. There is a difference time-wise from building one from the ground up, but even just from purchasing one, the legal side of the aspect of it, for one, takes several months.
Yes.
So 200, if he's trying to get that done, you would think under normal rules that would take a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who doesn't live in this country.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So we'll talk to Abe Hamilton III about that. I guess the big news is the potential landfall for the hurricane coming up.
Yeah, it's not a hurricane yet, but they're expecting it'll be a 2 or 3. We're talking about soon-to-be Hurricane Helene, and right now kind of just west of Cuba, Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, but it's moving up. The waters in the Gulf of Mexico right now are 85, 90 degrees. That is just going to supply the energy for this big storm. Right now, most of the weather forecasters are saying Helene is going to hit in that bend of Florida. So
the Big Bend's what they call
it. The Big Bend. It's got the Panhandle, got the peninsula that goes down, and so it's going to come right in there. They expect it could be a Category 3. We're talking winds of 120 miles an hour. We're talking big surge of water. And this thing is very powerful, gaining power. They're talking about the impact you're talking about in Atlanta. We're talking about an impact in Asheville, North Carolina, in Nashville, Tennessee. They're saying, for instance, in Asheville, North Carolina, 12 inches of rain, 13 inches of rain there. So I think, 61 counties in Florida, state of emergency. Governor DeSantis has already declared a state of emergency in those areas. So even outside the cone, as they call it, people are going to get, over as far as Destin, on over into perhaps into Alabama area, Mobile. You're going to get some rain there. Tampa's certainly going to feel this. Orlando's going to feel it. And as I say, Atlanta.
South Georgia, too.
All across there. So this is a bad one. There is nothing to stop this thing as it's moving north. We're talking about probably midday to later on tomorrow, the major impact coming ashore.
I'm always amazed. I'm looking at the National Weather Service, their prediction center. I'm always amazed at how far inland a hurricane's impact, how far inland the impact is of a hurricane.
Yep.
Now, obviously, it's not the same as the coastal regions when a hurricane hits, but I guess because there are no mountains and the land is not flat in the southeast, but there's not a whole lot to break up the course of a hurricane, and you're talking about all the way to North Carolina, even a little bit above.
It's more or less the rain.
The rain, right?
Yeah, the flooding, the potential for flooding. You get 3 to 5 inches of rain. So, I was just looking at the path right now. The prediction is, you say landfall tomorrow night?
Somewhere, afternoon tomorrow.
Okay. Anyway, right now the center of the projected cone, that is where it's likely to make landfall, is like east of Panama City Beach, east of, is that St. George Island? I think that's St. George Island. It's like, it might be like in the eye, the eye, if it stays on path. That's a place some people are familiar with and go to the vacation. It's not as popular as Panama City or Destin or that area, but in Florida, but it's still, a lot of folks go there to vacation. So anyway, also I mentioned yesterday, there's a little town called Mexico City. It's not in Mexico. It's in Florida. It's like right to the, 5 miles, 10 miles to the east of Panama City, and it's right on the beach. And they're the ones that got just wiped off the map. I mean, literally leveled by a Category 5 hurricane about 4 or 5 years ago. You remember this?
Oh.
Yeah, and it's just like this hurricane is like coming right for them again.
Same spot.
Did they rebuild after the?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's that's very. People love the Gulf Coast, and people love building condos and hotels and resorts and things like that. So I'm sure they rebuilt that. It wasn't. Anyway, I just noticed this in this cone. So it's ready for Jim Cantori.
Yeah,
huh?
He's
Jim
heading to the
Cantori
coast.
coming.
Yeah.
All right, next story, Fred.
All right. Well, a Senate panel made up Republicans and Democrats have been working and investigating the attempted assassination of former President Trump in Pennsylvania back several weeks ago, back in July. They released a report earlier this morning, which was kind of odd time, but early this morning they released their report. And I guess we should not be shocked. They found a large number of deficiencies in the way that security was handled, Secret Service in particular. I just want to read you a few of the bullet points coming out from this. The investigators...
Bullet points, really, Fred?
Yes.
Okay.
Investigators...
Poor choice of words.
Yes. Investigators found there was no clear chain of command among the Secret Service and other security agencies. Chain of command is something that is drilled into you, whether it's the military, police, or whatever the case may be. They respect the chain of command. These Democrats and Republicans saying basically it didn't exist in this operation. The report found the Secret Service was notified about an individual on the roof of the building approximately 2 minutes before that shooter opened fire. 2 minutes is a long time.
Long time.
Approximately 22 seconds before the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, fired, the report found a local officer sent a radio alert that there was an armed individual on the building, but that information was not relayed to key Secret Service personnel who were interviewed by Senate investigators. The panel also interviewed a Secret Service counter sniper who reported seeing officers with their guns drawn running toward the building where the shooter was perched. But the person said they did not think to notify anyone to get Trump off the stage. And there's also the report they had a drone, but the person assigned to operate the drone did not know how to operate the drone. In fact, it is reported he was phoning tech support to get some help on how to operate that drone. There is not one good thing in this report applauding anybody there.
I go back and forth with, depending on the information I get, how much of this is a failure to do their incompetence, and then there's always that portion of me that's like, it almost seems conspiratorial that there's this many failures. You know what I mean? So I mean, I still go back and look at the map, and the fact that under all these failures, the fact that was not occupied just blows my mind. Talking about the clear line of sight within 130 yards and got a rifle up there. But
well, come on now, Wesley. The slope of that roof.
Tell me about it.
That was their excuse.
Original.
Original excuse.
Well, along with other things as well. That wasn't the only one. But yeah, this is so. Let's just stick with the facts here for now, and that's just complete incompetence to say the least.
I'll say this.
What was the last bullet point there?
Well, I mentioned about the drone operator.
The drone. Okay, so the drone thing. That's where. See, up to that point, I'm going incompetent. But then when you get to this part, I'm going, come on now. Are you saying that you just didn't? I can't get it to work, or you know what I mean? Or is this really you can't get it? I mean. Is it incompetence, or are you just not doing your job?
Or if this person who was chosen said, by the way, I haven't done this before.
Yeah, but you do it. You're the youngest guy. You do it. Listen, this is a bipartisan Senate report.
It is.
And here's the headline on CNN. So this is kind of surprising. New report details stunning Secret Service leadership failures around first Trump assassination attempt. So at least CNN is recognizing that no one's defending the Secret Service.
No.
That's right.
And that's at least a good thing.
Yeah.
I suppose it's to be expected that everyone understands. That's why this is a bipartisan report. Everyone understands that if this is actual Secret Service incompetence, that can bite either political party. Yes. Eventually. You want political leaders kept safe from wackadoodles, or in the case of what we're hearing about Iran, maybe actual assassins in our country. You want to protect political figures.
Well, yeah, apparently you bring up Iran. Trump has been informed that there's been actual plots run on his life by Iran. Tulsi Gabbard, who is now a Trump advisor, addressed that this morning. Cut number 2.
It is deeply disturbing to see that, Iran is supporting these assassination attempts, but they're not the only ones. We know that the drug cartels, that any of these entities, that President Trump is a threat to their existence, they are trying to take him out.
Yeah, this, I'm trying to remember, at least in recent history, has there been one person like a Donald Trump who has been targeted so much? In such a short period of time.
3 times within, 2 months?
Yes.
So
I would say this, that the Biden administration, and I use that term lightly, broadly now, because I think we've all discussed, I don't think Joe Biden is at the top of the heap here, running his own administration. But it would help matters if Joe Biden or even Kamala Harris or Anthony Blinken or somebody came out publicly and said, we have found out, we have information that Iran has plotted the assassination of Donald Trump, and we just want to let Iran know if anything comes of that, we will consider it an act of war and will respond accordingly. That should be something that the Biden administration makes clear to Iran.
I still want, before we go any further, I still want Dad's reaction to the guy that was responsible for the drone
Oh, me.
What think about that?
That's listen. If it wasn't so serious, it would be like a Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
But
You guys remember the Keystone Cops? It's kind of before.
It's
certainly before Wesley's time.
It's a saying that
Yeah.
I'm familiar with. People say
Keystone Cops were during the silent era of movies, and I don't know whether it was Buster Crabbe or whoever it was, but they were cops who would chase a criminal, but they would always be stumbling over one another and just completely incompetent, and that's what if the Secret Service isn't careful, that's the kind of image they're going to create for themselves.
So the report is that a trained Secret Service agent is calling somebody to find out how to use a drone in the midst of the situation on the ground
Not in the middle of it necessarily. That was a responsibility from the start of the event to the end of the event to fly a drone.
Yeah, to keep track of what's happening.
Well, from the Fox News report on this panel report that came out this morning, among the key features, an agent inexperienced with drone equipment called a toll-free tech support hotline for help after a request ahead of time for additional unmanned assets was denied.
Now,
quick solution. You have two, and when one doesn't work, you use the other one.
Yeah.
Well, we all
thinking
listen,
ahead.
At least
because
calling
of the seriousness of it.
Yeah.
At least calling a 1-800 number gets you through right away. Right, so that I'm just tongue in cheek here, folks.
For English,
we
press 1.
Exactly. And you listen to the elevator. Your call is important to us.
For Iranian, press
this is
4.
like not testing your firearm before you go. I mean, this is so important of a situation.
I know.
that there is no good answer for not having two drones. One doesn't work. You use the other one, and you test these things out before you get there.
Right.
You just can't get there and not have a drone.
It was a colossal failure on the part of those in charge that day.
I thought we'd have a little more fun with that one,
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
But they're also talking about what happened at the golf course just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
The other attempt.
Now y'all help me here, okay? On the golf course situation, the Secret Service, did they not do their job? I mean, they spotted this guy with a gun.
I go back and forth.
I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, I go back. Now, this is all our personal. I mean, none of us work security or anything, but just based on what we've read and our opinions, I go back and forth. I mean,
on that one, you mean?
Yeah, and because I do agree that them being proactive and being a holes ahead did help protect him in that sense. However, there is a discussion to be had. How did a guy get that within that close? Too.
And he was there for like 12 hours.
Yeah. So
nobody. Evidently nobody was. They probably just, quite frankly, don't have the resources to surround a golf course. A golf course is huge. Okay, you're talking about if it's fenced in. Even if it's fenced in, you're talking about many acres of property. And I mean, I don't know, unless you have video surveillance. At the I don't know how you do it any differently than what they did it. That is, walk ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, walk. I don't know if they're walking, but ahead of where President Trump is going. Is playing, as you said, Wesley. He's advancing hole to hole to hole till he finishes his round of golf, and you have, I don't know what, 10, 12, 15 agents out just looking around to make sure, and somebody a hole ahead of where Trump was spotted the rifle, spotted the gun, and so, but that's an enormous task.
It's certainly not as bad of a. If you're of one that questions that's a partial failure, it's still nowhere near as bad as it was
in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
No, I agree with that. All right, but the fellow was the would-be assassin in Florida at the golf course was. You're right. Was reportedly, basically. Camped out in his spot for 12 hours, and nobody spotted him.
Right.
We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Abraham Hamilton III will join us. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred, thank you for listening.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Kenneth Lassiter was a cop. He was an Alabama State Trooper. Lassiter took his job serious. He was helpful to people, but he also did his duty and wrote a ticket when it was deemed necessary. On February the 12th, 1973, Lassiter was patrolling a highway near Montgomery when he came up on the scene of an accident. A man had lost control of his pickup truck and was bleeding to death with a severed artery. Lassiter, trained in first aid, managed to stop the bleeding and call for an ambulance. The injured man, Kenneth Ray Barton, was taken to a hospital and recovered. Lassiter eventually charged Barton with drunk driving. Like we said, he helped people, but he also did his duty. When the case got to court, the judge reduced the drunk driving charge to one of reckless driving. This reduction of sentence allowed Barton to keep his driver's license. I'm sure that the judge thought he was doing the right thing. It's a hard punishment to require a person to give up his driver's license, and surely Barton had learned his lesson from the previous experience. After all, any reasonable person who nearly kills himself while driving drunk surely wouldn't make the same mistake again. Nearly 14 months later, Trooper Lassiter had stopped another car very near the place where he had saved Barton's life. Lassiter wrote the motorist a warning ticket and had started back to his car. A battered old pickup coming down the road swerved and headed straight toward him. The trooper saw the pickup coming and started to run, but it was too late. He was hit and killed before he could get out of the way. So, nearly the very spot where he had saved one man's life only 14 months earlier, Trooper Lassiter died while doing his duty. The pickup which hit Lassiter didn't stop to help him. The driver just kept going. It could have been that the driver was drunk. Well, the next day a man turned himself over to the sheriff's office. He told authorities that he had been out drinking the night before. He said he could not remember driving home or who was at the wheel of the truck. Headlines in a newspaper, which had a story telling of the incident, read like this: "Trooper killed by man whose life he once saved." You see, the man who turned himself in was Kenneth Ray Barton. Here's a personal note to all judges. The next time a person is brought before you on a drunk driving charge, be lenient. Reduce his sentence to reckless driving and let him keep his license. We all know that they've learned their lesson and won't drive again while drunk, don't we? Kenneth Ray Barton is proof of that. So be lenient, Mr. Judge. Be lenient.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27:4.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues. This is a live radio program, ladies and gentlemen. Live radio.
It's live.
We don't tape it and then go back and edit it to make ourselves sound smart. We just are. Just naturally let it flow.
And it is what it was.
Or, yes. Or something like that.
Something like that.
Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred.
We're as smart as we sound.
We won't give you our last names. We don't want our identity stolen.
I don't think we have to worry about that.
Oh, you don't have to worry about it because there's a major security breach at a company every day.
Yep. That's right.
Releasing your information out all over the world.
Well, my wife and I we were caught up in one. They had this huge breach. This I forget the group. It was this group that does background checks for the police.
Yeah.
And we're in it. So we had to freeze our credit, the 3 credit bureau accounts. We had to freeze our credit reports. And if we, if you want to go buy a car or something like that.
You just want to go back to paper.
That's exactly the way I feel.
Well, I was I was checking my email. My email's been public for like 20 years.
Yeah.
25 years. So it is a complete dumpster fire. I don't even want to look at it anymore. I don't even. I just scroll to see if there's something I'm expecting.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I'm
it
with
doesn't
you.
even get a purview or
Right.
a look. If you can, a purview is not a look. A view is a look, but whatever. So there was one this morning from, quote, American Express. And American Express is telling me that, quote, American Express is telling me there's been a suspicious activity.
Yeah.
So the suspicious activity email wants me to use my phone to scan a barcode.
Oh, my goodness.
How dumb? Yes, I'm in Mississippi. How dumb do you think I am?
Do you, if you don't mind my asking, do you even have American Express?
Well, thank you, Ed, for exposing me to other people.
No. Okay, I don't have.
I have
American
credit
Express.
cards.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not going to
Okay,
give numbers
I guess
or expiration
okay.
dates or anything like
Well,
that.
just your
Does it
birthday.
end in a 4?
Okay, I'm not going to deny or confirm.
Okay,
that
all
I've
right.
had- No, what I'm saying to you is the scammers
Yes.
on email, for example, they pretend to be people to help you avoid scamming.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what
And
I'm saying.
I get what I was going to say is I'll get messages. I'm just using this as an example from American Express when I don't have an American Express card.
Well,
and we do have credit cards, a couple of credit cards, but I don't have American Express. But they'll contact me and say, "Hey, you better check in." And I'm going, like you said, how dumb do you think? And then they misspell words in the email.
It's just like, and then you you think you're okay, and then 3 days later you get Social Security is breached.
Yes.
Then Marriott's breached, and
But we want to get rid of cash, don't we? We want to
And
go
you're
to a
mad at
cashless
everybody the rest of the
society.
day.
I think
People you don't even know.
Oh no, I think more emails in the world are on the dark web than are on the regular web now. I think because of all the breaches that have taken place.
Listen, I can't even stand Facebook anymore. I'm just going to be honest.
Okay, be honest.
I'm this close to just
clicking it off.
Just getting off because I get friend requests from people I'm friends with, and I'm going, well, somebody's got a hold of your account and is sending a friend request to me,
right?
And we're already friends. Pretty sure.
So it's just spam city out there, spam and scam city out there across the globe. All right. Well, we joined now by Abraham Hamilton III. Abe, do you have an American Express card?
Sure.
Well, I did stay at a Holiday Inn recently, so
a Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not an American
Nicely
Express.
played.
Okay. How you doing this morning, Abe?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Okay. Doing good, brother. Listen, wanted to ask you, first of all, I know Fred's got a question about a story in the news today, but before we do, George Soros, can you give us a what in the world's going on there, Abe?
Hey,
you got.
I have my headphones on, so I didn't hear it.
Oh,
so
you got
your microphone picked up something that I didn't hear.
Well, you got 6 little Hamiltons running around the house, right?
Yes,
You're at home.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're not. I just want people to know we're not responsible,
right,
for what you may hear in the background at the Hamilton home. Okay, so give us a profile of George Soros, because his name's thrown around a lot by people like us and people conservatives. He's the man behind the. He's
Oz.
He's the man behind the curtain. Who is this fella?
Yeah, I mean, he's a billionaire who dedicates a particular percentage of his revenue annually, particularly for social activism, civic activism in a anti-Christ globalist direction. He's the one who helped.
He's not American, right? Isn't he Hungarian?
He's not American. Yeah, he's Hungarian, and he's Jewish.
He's a Jew from Hungary.
Yeah.
Yes. Didn't he? And I know you may not know the answer to this. Didn't he make his money by something about the currency in Great Britain or something like that? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think he basically bet against the British currency, I think, at the time. I'm just going. There's something rattling around back there, like you're saying.
Anyway,
and that's how he became
a billionaire,
multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, how did he get it? How long has he been this bar lefty? Is what I would call him.
He's been this way for quite a long time. I mean, he's responsible for many of the major metropolitan areas having whacked out progressive district attorneys because he wanted to influence social policy. So he would unilaterally use his funds, and he realized that they had low voter turnout in many of those district attorney races. And so he helped people like Alvin Bragg in Manhattan and the district attorney in San Francisco area, and others get elected. He's been this way for quite some time.
And the reason it was so easy for that to happen, getting these far left district attorneys elected, is because not much money is generally spent on advertising in those races. Right. So if you get $1 million from George Soros or $2 million from his Open Society foundations to run ads, then your face and your name is what appears on local television spots.
But my question would be, if you can answer this, Abe, why does a Hungarian man who's a multi-billionaire, not a U.S. citizen as far as I know, why does he care about American cities having district attorneys that let criminals out without violent criminals run the streets? Why does he care about that?
He does have dual citizenship.
He does? Okay.
Yes, Hungary and U.S.
Okay. Go ahead, Abe.
Well, frankly, he's a Marxist and he's a globalist, and the utilization of chaos as a mechanism to have, and this may sound far out, but this is frankly what they do.
Okay.
One of his major organizations is called the Open Society Foundation, which is he wants a borderless, nationless world. And so in order to accomplish that, just as you heard Rahm Emanuel, the Alinsky maxim, you never let a crisis go to waste. Well, what better to do? How do you implement that even further? By creating the very crises that you don't want to allow to go to waste. And so he's using chaos, frankly, as a mechanism to accomplish his political objectives.
All right, what's the story in the news, Fred, that got our attention?
Well, the big story in the news is that George Soros wants to buy 200 radio stations. I assume it's a network.
In the U.S.?
Yes. I assume it's a network already in existence that's owned by an entity, and he wants to buy this entity that has 200 radio stations. Now, that kind of came out back several weeks ago that he wanted to do this. The story that is developing the last couple of days is that he wants to speed up the process of getting FCC, Federal Communications Commission, approval to do this in order, bend some rules so I can get this deal done right away. We have an audio clip here, Abe, before we get your take on this. This is from a Republican FCC commissioner. So, Ed, I think you pointed this out at the top of the program. There are 5 commissioners on the Federal Communications Commission. Right now, there are 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. This is one of the Republicans. His name is Brandon Carr, saying that Soros is being given a shortcut to owning these 200 radio stations, cut number 11.
You've indicated there's a transaction where a Soros-backed group would take ownership of over 200 radio stations across 40 different markets. The FCC here is not following its normal process for reviewing a transaction. We have established over a number of years one way in which you can get approval from the FCC when you have in excess of 25% foreign ownership, which this transaction does. And it seems to me that the FCC is poised to create, for the first time, an entirely new shortcut. The full commission itself has never signed off on a shortcut like this. What we usually do is we require people to file a petition with us. We bring in national security agencies. They can review the foreign ownership. It's probably no big deal here, but we review that foreign ownership, and then we vote. Here, they're trying to do something that's never been done before at the commission level.
So there you have it. Yeah, he wants a shortcut to get this deal done. I don't know if it'd be done so quickly, Abe, that he'd get his political messages out over this 200 radio station network.
Yeah. This this actually dates back to January of this year. There's the second largest radio company in America, a company called Odyssey, filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy back in January. When the bankruptcy was filed, the Soros Management Fund made a bid, a $414 million bid to acquire Odyssey's debt and to pay off some of that debt. In the process, they would become the owner of all of Odyssey's radio holdings.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happened to this point, as with all transactions, all broadcast networks, that would be television and radio, they are subject to regulation by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. What Soros is asking for is unprecedented in the FCC's history, and it's actually the waiver of two provisions. First of all, as you heard Commissioner Brendan Carr explain, that any application for ownership of an American broadcast network that has over 25% foreign investment is subject to review, is automatically subject to review. Because of that, that review can take as much as 6 months to a year. Then there's an additional component that requires, when you have the potential of that foreign ownership, that is a national security review aspect of it. Soros's group applied for and to field that $414 million acquisition of Odyssey's holdings. Soros specifically courted foreign investment. So it's not speculation. It's not an allegation that the ownership exceeds 25% foreign investment. It does. And Soros is saying, yeah, well, we want you, FCC, to change your policies for my acquisition so that I can hurry up and take ownership of this organization. And I want to be clear that the FCC has, according to what's being reported, has voted and has approved it, but for a temporary waiver to allow his group to acquire the licenses and then to revisit it later. The issue is that this has never been done before. So the question that many people are asking is why is the FCC so willing to try to bend the rules to fast track this acquisition and really to allow Soros to take ownership so quickly, which, oh, and by the way, some of Odyssey's station includes conservative talk radio shows, talk radio programs that are included in the Odyssey network.
Well, and Abe speaks from experience because he handles a lot of our business having to do with the Federal Communications Commission in terms of our radio network. So we have a lot of experience in this, but in this case, not just taking, quote, Abe's word for it, we played a quote from the sitting commissioner. As Ed said, there are 5 commissioners that oversee the FCC. FCC it's not sexy. It doesn't get a lot of attention. There's usually no controversy. I mean, it's a pretty boring organization for the most part, and we like it that way.
Right.
But they do have power because they grant licenses, and you cannot broadcast on TV or radio in the U.S. without having a license from the FCC. And they've generally, over their history, been considered apolitical. I mean, they just, you have two Democrats, 2 Republicans, and whoever the president's party is, as you said, Ed. But in this case, we have a situation where this gentleman, what's his name, the FCC commissioner, the Republican?
His name is Brendan Carr.
He sounded the alarm. He's saying, listen, George Soros is getting special treatment because, and you said, then the question is left, why is he getting special treatment? And then you have to say, because the Democrats have a 3-2 control over the FCC, and they're using it for a power play on behalf of George Soros. Now I'm making some links here, making some leaps, but I think it's pretty. Everybody else is too in their mind.
Right.
You're saying, well, the reason he's getting a fast track that other people don't get, evidently, unless this is reversed or changed since the spotlight has been drawn on it, is because he's a big contributor to the Democratic Party. So he's paying. Am I the only one that sees the? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you can prove. You can prove what I just said, but I don't know if you could, Abe, if you could prove that's the reason he's getting this special treatment. But it seems so. Seems like he's getting the Hunter Biden treatment to me.
Yeah, it seems that way, especially when you contrast it with, there was an effort last year by conservative groups to do this exact same thing, and they were denied by the FCC.
Okay. So this may be a court case. Somebody goes to court. I don't know who the party would be that would have standing, but somebody. If the Republican or conservatives tried to do the same thing and they were denied, And then, Soros is allowed to fast-track his ownership of 200 radio stations in America. Maybe that group could sue the FCC and say, hey, you got a double standard here.
Yeah, they certainly should look into it. And,
Yeah.
and it's important. You all are right. In describing the FCC with 5 commissioners, it's important for the public to know that the newly elected president has the authority to replace the chairman of the FCC commission. So you always have 2 and 2, and then with the subsequent presidents, they break the tie.
How old is George Soros, by the way?
I don't know his age right off the top of my head.
He is 94.
94 years old.
94.
Do you say about a 94-year-old person they look good for their age? Or they look every bit
I
of
don't
90?
know when that photo was taken.
Or do you look every bit of 94? How do you say that to somebody? Either. I'm not sure.
I hope nobody says it to me because I'm 30 something.
This is one of those where you just don't say anything.
You don't say anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't. No
All right.
There's
go ahead.
One other note, just the political agenda of the Soros family.
Yeah.
He has a son that's about to take over the empire.
Okay.
And there's a picture, I think Fox is running it this morning, that the Kamala Harris's vice presidential helper, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, has held a meeting with him recently.
With Soros' son?
Soros' son. So, as they're political bedfellows. I mean, we know that.
I said this morning that I didn't know dragons could have children. George Soros. No, listen, I think George Soros is a bad actor.
Yes.
In terms of liberty. I've said stuff that I've read that he has said, including one of his books, that he does not like America because America is standing in the way and refuses to dive into the globalist pool. And I think he's trying to fundamentally change our country. That's why I say he's a bad actor.
Yeah.
And one other little tidbit.
Mm-hmm.
George Soros' son is about to or is already marrying one of Hillary Clinton's right-hand individuals, the woman who was married to Mr. Weiner.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Abedin.
Ula Abedin.
Uma. Yeah, Uma.
Yeah, Uma.
Yeah. You know she's right-handed.
You missed that one, Ed.
Yes.
But there's the connection.
There's the dynasty being formed.
Right-hand woman.
Yes.
The right-hand, not the right-hand man. Come on, Fred.
Come on.
Get with the times.
Get with the times.
Let's abandon the patriarchy, will you?
Yeah. Okay, Abe, what are you going to talk about this afternoon on your show?
Well, I talked about this last night in detail about this whole Odyssey deal, and so I plan to talk a little bit more today about what the prospects are facing our country. What is the view of the nation from a Trump presidency? What is the view of the nation from a Kamala Harris presidency?
Kamala or Kamala?
Kamala. I mean,
that's
Kamala, I think is the way she pronounces
it. He was confused too.
Yes.
And you made fun of mine. You made fun of my joke.
I did. Well, all right. Thank you, Abe. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. All right.
All right. Abe evidently looked back at his kids and snapped his fingers.
Because they quieted down.
They quieted down pretty quick there.
I think
or either they went outside. He told them shoo.
Either one.
Get outside, kids. I'm on the radio. All right. You're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred. Next story, Fred.
Well, next story, let's go to the Middle East, and we know what's happening.
All good times there, isn't it, Fred?
Good times. Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu said this several months ago. We live in a rough neighborhood, and we know what's been happening almost a year now since the October 7th massacre by Hamas. More than 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children massacred there in southern Israel. They've been taking the campaign to Hamas in Gaza, but in recent weeks, they are now taking on Hezbollah. Because remember, the Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon, on October the 8th, within 24 hours after Hamas had carried out that deed, Hezbollah started bombing in northern Israel, forcing thousands of Israelis who live in northern Israel to flee from their neighborhood. So Prime Minister Netanyahu has said, just in the last 10 days, we're picking up the campaign against Hezbollah because we can't allow this to continue. So in recent days, you know what happened just in the last week, the exploding pagers and walkie-talkies. And now they've picked up the bombing in southern Lebanon. And there was video yesterday that the Israeli intelligence, and it's so good, it's world-renowned, knows that Hezbollah is keeping missiles in people's houses. And so Israel has been targeting these people's houses. Well, Joel Rosenberg, a well-known Christian author, he was on with our own Jenna this morning, and he is very upset. Leon Panetta, do you remember that name from the past? Worked in Democrat administrations.
It was in the
Clinton, was it?
Clinton.
Yes. Leon Panetta has referred to Israel blowing up those pagers as an act of terrorism. He's accusing Israel of terrorism. Joel Rosenberg had something to say about that this morning. Cut number 10.
For Leon Panetta to accuse Israel of terrorism by having this ingenious strategy to kill or wound thousands of Hezbollah terrorists all in one moment by putting small explosive devices in both walkie-talkies and pagers for almost the entire senior Hezbollah leadership and the mid-range terrorists. It's moral bankruptcy. I mean, it shows how much key Democrats have decided that Israel is the problem, that killing terrorists is not the objective anymore. And I just look at this and I say, this is a mistake.
By the way, Leon Panetta was also involved in the Obama administration, but he was chief of staff, I think, for Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Well, look, I don't want to hog. I want to give Wesley a chance, but it seems to me that people like Leon Panetta, the way they are envisioning what's happening, is that Hamas and Hezbollah are actually like the military arms of Palestinians, and that this is a war between militaries, and you should not you should avoid
a conventional war.
Yes, it's a conventional war rather than fighting
terrorists. That's what
terrorists.
they're treating it as.
Yes.
The UN and these people who are critical of Israel.
Right.
They're treating it like when, do they say when Hamas and Hezbollah kill innocent Israeli citizens and bomb their country and terrorize, do they come out and say, well, no, that was an act of terrorism?
Yeah, well, this missile that was launched by Hezbollah towards Tel Aviv, if that had landed instead of being intercepted, it would have killed civilians.
Right. I can't help but think, I mean, a lot of these people, they may not say it out loud, but they are just basically anti-Israel and anti-Jew, and they want to see them eradicated too, but they're not going to say it like I just said it. They're not going to say it like Hamas and Hezbollah said it. But if you're critical of Israel and their tactics and to take out Hamas and Hezbollah leadership and their apparatus that they use to attack Israel, and the ultimate goal being to kill all the Jews and drive them into the sea, or drive them into the sea, whatever.
Yeah.
How they phrase it, like it's in the Hamas charter, right?
Right.
So, it's when you're at war, you have to use every tool in your disposal, and Israel is smarter and has more technological advances than Hezbollah or Hamas.
Right.
Just by pure definition, a terrorist is a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidations, especially against civilians, not against their enemy. I know we all know this, but just by definition alone, that's not a terrorist when an army attacks another army, for lack of better words. That's called warfare.
Right. Leon Panetta thinks that because Hezbollah soldiers aren't wearing uniforms,
sure, I get
then
it.
you can't kill them.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And if one innocent person dies as a result, then Israel's to blame for that death.
Silly.
We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
All God asks of you is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today. Did you see it this morning? All the odds against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit AFA.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Helene has strengthened into a hurricane, and forecasters warn that the storm will intensify as it crosses the Gulf of Mexico on a path to Florida. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said today the hurricane is about 500 miles southwest of Tampa, with sustained winds of 80 miles per hour. Helene became a tropical storm Tuesday in the western Caribbean and caused flooding in the Cayman Islands. Forecasters say it is expected to become a major hurricane, with its center making landfall in the Big Bend area of Florida's northwestern coast as soon as late Thursday. Most of Florida has been under a state of emergency for days. Vice President Harris hasn't said anything on the campaign recently about supporting gender mutilation surgeries for prisoners, but as a presidential candidate in 2019, she checked yes on a questionnaire when asked if she would support taxpayer-funded gender mutilation for detained illegal aliens. The Trump campaign continues to draw contrast between the former president and Vice President Harris. Trump campaign senior advisor Tim Murtaugh.
Donald Trump was out on the campaign trail today talking about reviving the manufacturing sector and bringing it back to life, an American industrial revolution again. That's what he's talking about. And on the other side, you have Kamala Harris talking about sex change operations paid for by the taxpayers for people serving 55 years for strangling an 11-month-old baby.
The Consumer Confidence Index sees the biggest drop since 2021. Taylor Riggs is co-host of The Big Money Show on Fox Business.
A lot of the big decline that we saw in the consumer confidence number was the present economic situation index. So you're right. A lot of people, I think, right now still don't feel like things are great. We could talk about a Federal Reserve cutting 50 basis points, 0.5%. Shouldn't that all make us feel better? No, it's not. It hasn't sort of trickled in through into the economy yet.
Nancy Pelosi was interviewed by CNN's Jake Tapper, who was asking her about Kamala Harris's plan.
I get that she's from a middle-class family, but what about, like, here are the 5 things I'm going to do directly for you? Does she need to be doing more of that?
People like to have a connection to whoever is running for office, that they share their experience, that they understand their lives. And I think that's what she is establishing.
Again, Taylor Riggs.
I don't need a connection. I need a plan to bring down regulation, to bring down taxes, to help spur the economy, to bring down prices, to bring down inflation. I need specifics on what you as a candidate are going to do to help me, A, in the grocery store, B, at my office to help wages keep up with inflation. I need specifics.
Voters will get to decide on whether to add a new amendment to the state constitution in New York, but one legal analyst says the proposition is practically a bait and switch.
Prop 1 is a catch-all amendment to the New York Constitution preventing alleged discrimination against 16 different characteristics, including sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy, and pregnancy outcomes. But according to Inez Stepman, senior policy and legal analyst with Independent Women's Voice, proponents are portraying it deceitfully to the public.
It's being sold as something that is very sort of basic, right? To the extent that New York voters have seen anything about this at all, they're hearing that it's, quote, protections for abortion and protections for LGBTQ.
The reality, she says, is that this is going to erase protections and privacy for women and girls.
And that's much more controversial in liberal New York than the way that it's being sold. Gender identity will become a protected category in New York State Constitution.
She said there are literally thousands of ways where the law currently recognizes the distinction between men and women and protects their sex-segregated spaces.
What allows, children in New York in public schools to be able to have sex-segregated bathrooms to the extent that that's not already being erased in other ways. Locker rooms, sports competitions, right? Anything in prisons. But this would create constitutional protections for men who I say that they identify as women and have them be treated by the state as women. And I don't think a lot of New York voters are aware that that's what's going on with this proposal.
So she says, voters, it's important to vote no to Prop 1 in New York. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
U.S. stocks are drifting around their records today as financial markets around the world take a pause following big recent moves. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Streaming.afa.net has now become AFA Stream, and you can find it at stream.afa.net. You see, we removed the letters ing. Our experts have determined that eliminating those 3 keystrokes, multiplied over hundreds of thousands of AFA Stream visits, could reduce the national debt and maybe increase the gross domestic product. AFA Stream, formerly streaming.afa.net. Improvements to the economy are purely theoretical. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues. That's the name of this show on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. I'm Tim with Ed and Wesley. And now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
All right. Lot to talk about these next 25 minutes of live, captivating, riveting.
Riveting.
You need to hear this radio.
I think you just remind everybody it's live to cover us because we know we're going to do something.
Well,
riveting radio. I like that. That's
riveting radio.
Riveting and righteous radio.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Well, we cannot let this.
That beats positive and encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every day.
Riveting and righteous radio.
That's K-Love's.
Brent Creeley, our producer. Write that down.
Righteous and riveting. Caleb's motto, is positive and encouraging.
Yes.
So we're going to be
and we love our Caleb brethren.
Yes,
and sistren.
Absolutely. They can play music while the world burns. Go ahead.
We actually play some music. But then we also have righteous and riveting radio.
I'm kidding.
I had a friend who used to install rivets on an airplane. He's a riveting.
Right.
I
don't think this is related.
No.
But anyway, riveting, two different uses of the word rivet.
Oh.
Let me just say, just to clarify, we do have a good relationship, and we do love our brethren over at the Caleb Network.
Yes.
Okay? I'm just teasing around here.
We're just having some fun.
Steve,
hey,
over to you, Steve. No more fun, Steve.
No more fun.
No.
Okay, this is going to shock you all, so grab onto your chairs.
Okay, I'm grabbed on. I've got my chair grabbed on.
Shock away.
Shock away, Steve.
Google is putting its hand on the scale of the elections.
I find that hard to believe.
I know.
There's social media. They're supposed to be independent and neutral.
According to a new study by Media Research Center.
It's a platform.
When you Google Donald Trump presidential race 2024 and Kamala Harris presidential race 2024, you get two different types of results.
Ed's doing that in real. He's doing that in real time. You did it in real time.
I did it. And I have a copy here.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Okay. What did your research find, Steve?
Well, here's what I researched. When I typed in Kamala Harris presidential race 2024, now both of these results have top news stories at the top. The news stories on Kamala Harris, Harris and Trump to share dueling economic visions, and then it goes down to the first website result is an NBC News story. It says newly popular Harris builds momentum, and then it's got a couple videos, and then it's got Kamala Harris for president.
Her website.
Her website, right?
Yes.
Which is kind of what you would expect, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking for that, that's what you're expecting.
Donald Trump for president 2024. Donald Trump presidential.
If you Google that.
I did. Same exact thing. Got the news stories at the top.
Okay.
Then a CNN. It said live update Donald Trump Kamala Harris election news. Then 38.5 Interactive, a poll site. Then The Economist, a story about Harris versus Trump. Then the New York Times story about Harris versus Trump. Then a bunch of polls.
That doesn't sound biased.
Then CNN, a story about the campaign. And then Open Secrets, presidential race funding. who's favored to win the presidential election. Another New York Times story, and
How
finally,
much longer are you going to go?
finally, this is 10
Trump
entries
website.
down. The official Trump website,
Oh,
which
gotcha.
is sponsored. He had to pay for it.
Okay, now where does hers pop up?
Hers pops up number 3.
Okay, so here's the point. Google is the largest internet search engine in the world.
By far.
I think by far, like you said, it's even a verb.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah.
So everybody says Google it, right?
Yeah.
So what the Media Research Center has pointed out, and you're reporting, Steve, is that Google, and everybody knows Google is a lefty. I mean, they have been they may not characterize themselves that way, but the policies that they've supported and the things that they've said and done, they're on the quote. They would call themselves quote progressive
or woke,
okay? Or yeah, we would call them woke. So they would, but they are supposed to theoretically, I guess, be fair and balanced, right? And what you're saying is, if you type Kamala Harris's name up, can you type up? You can type them down as far as I'm concerned, or sideways. But if you type Kamala Harris in Google, her official campaign site comes up third. That's what you're saying when you did it.
Yeah.
An hour ago or whatever?
10 minutes ago.
Okay. So, but when you type in Donald Trump's name,
it's at the bottom of the second page.
His official website for his campaign comes up like 10 down.
10 down, and it's sponsored, which means he had to pay to hit that.
Did she not?
No.
It doesn't. It doesn't say that, huh?
The
I wonder if that's true.
I
That
know
would
that-
seem to me like a violation of some kind of rules here. Go ahead.
Google.
Now you read those off pretty fast, but when I looked at something along these same lines a couple months ago, when this was also being reported at different times, when you're talking about putting their names in Google,
right.
Also, what I noticed at the time, and it sounded like it happened there, when you type in Trump, you're getting Harrison's name in the article multiple times. Whereas if you type in Harris, you're not getting Trump's name in the article. Are you following me there? So and now for somebody who's already on either side, none of that matters. But for somebody who is just
Well, listen. The people who work in Silicon Valley, that's where Google is based out of. I know they probably have employees all over the world.
Silicon Valley.
What did I say?
I think it's
Silicon.
I said silicone?
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
We don't want to talk about
I
silicon
apologize
on this show.
I apologize to my family and everybody. I really did say silicone?
Silicone. That's all right. Listen, you're still a good person.
Go from Mississippi. You can get away with the live. It's live.
That's true.
So
That's true.
again, we set this up.
I don't know-
Mississippi live. So
I don't know that we can now say we're still riveting, but we're
that's true. We can't do that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
just start over.
I'm gonna correct. I'm gonna start
Yeah.
over. We all need a mulligan in life.
That's
don't we?
right.
There you go.
Well,
you
one
go.
more, and you're going to have to start repenting.
Yeah.
So
But I don't want to. I don't want to have to repent for a mispronounced word. I got enough real sins to repent of.
That's right. Let's hurry this up a little
God's
bit.
going to hold me accountable for mispronounced words.
We're all in trouble.
We're all in trouble. So anyway, where were we, Steve?
You were talking about Silicon Valley being liberal.
Silicon, not the
So
other
which
thing
one
I
is
said.
it? Hold on.
It's
Silicon.
Silicon Valley.
We'll talk
Okay.
afterwards about
Yeah,
the difference.
Listen, Silicon Valley's probably going to vote 90-10 for Harris, okay, in the upcoming election. So, and all those big tech companies, they're all uber progressive. They would Facebook, all of them. So, but sometimes they at least try to hide it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? To say that we're neutral. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit, but related. I do give credit where credit is due. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta,
which owns Facebook.
He did say recently in an interview that he regrets how he handled COVID.
Yes.
And
Who said that?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, gotcha.
And he also said, I believe he said, and not only did he regret how he handled COVID because he trusted the government agencies too much, did he not comment on how Facebook handled the Hunter Biden laptop story?
I think he did.
Yes.
I think
It was all in the same.
There's three things he apologized for, and that was two of them. One of them was COVID.
Okay.
The other was
That's
laptop.
you
I can't
know,
remember the third.
that's like I say, credit where credit is due. Did they blow it in those cases? Yes.
I just,
Go
I
ahead.
just wish he'd be held accountable for it. It's one thing to apologize for it after the fact. I just wish there would have been there needs to be a consequence for what he did.
Besides, apologizing when you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar is not the same
You guys
as
are not expressing much Christian forgiveness here at all. You guys are wanting him to bleed.
No, we're doing Christian discernment here.
Yeah.
Is what we're doing.
All right, let me just say this. We can move on to the next topic. Unless you guys want to talk about silicone.
Well, I do have something to add to this.
Okay. Well, let me just say this about what you guys are talking about. You guys are not ready to give an inch to Mark Zuckerberg.
No, sir.
I don't think the leopard has changed its
Oh, I'm
spot.
not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's changed his politics.
Yeah.
I'm saying he at least manned up. Can you say man up anymore? Or do you have to go gender neutral on this?
Well, we
anyway,
don't.
he has manned up and said, I regret how we as a company handle those because we assumed too much. We trusted too much in what the government and other media were saying. And so I will say this about him saying that. I don't think he's not saying I regret being a progressive liberal. He's saying in that we were duped. Now listen, you might say, well, how is that possible? Remember, okay, I'm going to sound like an apologist for Facebook and who else was it? Twitter at the time and others that were suppressing these stories and siding with the left.
All of them.
Okay, you remember that?
All of Silicon Valley was doing it.
They were
nicely done.
I'd already apologized.
I'm sitting here ready to debate Dad, and y'all are still joking.
All right, I'm sorry.
It gets
I
serious.
still got something to add to the story.
I know, but let me just say this about that. So the people, Mark Zuckerberg himself wasn't sitting there making all these decisions at the time, okay?
Yeah.
He was surfing in Hawaii, okay, trying to create something else anyway. But like I said, the people who work for him, they're all basically of the same mindset. You can't get a job in this industry and be a conservative.
Or moderate.
I've known people, and they basically get weeded out.
Yeah.
So for him to admit that they blew it on that was kudos to him. Go ahead,
That's
Steve.
fair.
Getting back to the Google thing, though.
Yeah.
I have a study in front of me from 2015, August of 2015, and it says this is a journal study in a journal. This is a scientific research study that says that the biased search rankings can shift the voting preference of undecided voters by 20% or more, and the shift can be much higher in some other demographic groups. That's millions of votes.
Oh yeah, it's a problem.
That because they rank Donald Trump's website lower than Kamala Harris's.
Because people only look at a couple of oftentimes.
That's not fair, but that in my mind that's baked in. I mean, the liberal media, the liberal big social media, they're all against conservatives. They're all against Republicans.
Goes back to playing with one hand behind your back.
Yeah, and they're certainly going to be all against Trump. So Trump and Republicans and conservatives generally have to fight against that.
You might want to forgive Google, though, because they're doodled today. You know, they got a
doodle?
If you bring up Google, they're celebrating popcorn today.
Okay, see, they're not all bad.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Figured.
Where are they?
Yeah, they are. Look at that.
Not on mine.
Type just
I see
Google.com.
that's what it is on mine too.
Yeah, it's popcorn day.
By the way, I use the Brave.
Is it National Popcorn Day?
I don't know.
National.
You don't get it.
Well, click on Google right there. Mine has the popcorn. Is today National Popcorn Day?
I don't know why they did it.
Nope, National Popcorn Day is January the 19th.
Oh,
so
it says celebrating
sorry,
popcorn.
I misled everybody.
Maybe they're just
celebrating popcorn day.
Yeah. See, got popcorn. Well, I love popcorn. I'm just gonna.
Already had mine.
Just gonna tell you, I have not had any today.
Go, Steve.
All right. Springfield, Ohio came into the news recently because of the tens of thousands of illegal migrants that are camping out there.
I thought you were going to say pets that have gone missing.
Well, that's how it started. So you might remember Donald Trump talked about the residents of Springfield eating dogs and cats and pets of the residents there. Well, of
he was
course,
emphatic about it at the debate.
he was.
They're eating cats.
They're eating,
Pets.
they're eating people's pets. He said they're eating people's pets in Springfield.
Well, listen, hang on, Steve. Hang on. I know you got a lot of serious news here, but have you ever heard of the group Stray Cats?
Yeah.
I have,
Well,
yeah.
they canceled their concert in Springfield. I don't know whether they were just taking that too seriously.
They're too
or
old
what.
anyway to be rocking anymore past 8 o'clock.
I have to say, I saw someone posted a meme on Facebook.
Go, Steve.
All right. So, of course, if Donald Trump says something like that, you know that there's going to be about a dozen journalists or people who pretend to be journalists to go there just to debunk the thing, right?
Right.
Well, one of those was a journalist who went, I don't know if I have her name, but when she went, she was looking for
She's a cat lady.
The cat, yeah. So looking for cats and dogs in some way to discredit Trump, but she said she uncovered something sinister and real in this town. So the town has about 58,000 people, and there are 15,000 migrant workers there, and there's a nonprofit there called First Diversity Staffing Group, headed by a guy named George Ten. George Ten, you come to find out, has been trafficking Haitians into allegedly. They're finding that he owns about 50 homes in the city, dilapidated homes, and he's got about 10 shell corporations, and he's been allegedly bringing these Haitians in unmarked white vans for labor.
Where are you getting this story? Because that's pretty serious charges right there.
This particular one is in the JewishJournal.com, but I've seen it. I might have seen it elsewhere.
Okay, so if he wants to sue somebody,
not me. I said alleged.
Okay, you did say alleged.
Now, if this is true, and you are getting this from the Jewish Journal, I'm not sure who those folks are.
Well, they're Jewish.
He's reputable.
I think so. Yes.
Okay, but now if this is true, this is yet another reason why this uncontrolled. Now, what I'm about to say is true. I don't think anybody denies it. I just don't know about this George 10. But children are one of the major victims in this uncontrolled flow of illegal immigrants into this country.
Yes.
Because they are being victimized. I'm not saying all of them, but many of these children are being victimized, both for the purposes of using them in sweatshops, what we normally call it, or for sexual purposes. And they are and they are abused all the way up to the American border, many of these kids.
Which makes me
absolute tragedy.
Got to make you wonder what parent would send them on ahead. I mean, they're unaccompanied minors.
Yes. This is a terrible situation. And didn't we have somebody? I wasn't on the show yesterday. Did you guys have someone on the show?
Yeah, from 8 Days of Hope.
8
They
Days of Hope.
built 8 Days of Hope builds homes for, well, not homes. I mean that not in like a 3-bedroom house, but places
residential.
Places
areas.
for human trafficking victims to go.
For both recovery, both spiritually and physically, and they help them transition back into normal life.
And listen, I don't want people to. This is not a laughing matter at all,
right?
And our laughter was about other things.
About the cats,
it wasn't.
all that.
Yes, it wasn't associated with
this story.
The seriousness of the story you speak of, Stephen. And by the way, again, as it's been mentioned before, I'm gonna say it like this. If you want millions more people to come here to America illegally and have uncontrollable borders, then you need to vote for Harris. Okay? Because let me tell you something. She and Biden, whatever, you may be a Democrat or a liberal and vote for them for other reasons, but on this issue, they are against borders at all. They're for just letting anybody and everybody come into the U.S. And now we're seeing, by the way, I digress, and it's rare, but there was a story yesterday in the news about how the Venezuelan gangs are rising up in Chicago, and they're going to war on the streets with the
The gangs who used to be there.
The traditional gangs, for lack of a better word, that have controlled the streets of Chicago. Right. And also the Mexican drug cartels that we read about, these people don't play. If they invade towns, and I don't know how serious that is. I know it is in Mexico, but I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not just drive-by shootings are bad enough in this country.
Right.
These Mexican gangs, they decapitate people.
Yeah, yes. If you get in the way of their business,
black magic. I mean, these are Satanists, some of them.
Right. So there will be millions more come here. Biden and Harris, and this has been proven. Oh, they don't care how many people come. They don't care about that issue. If you do care, I'm just telling you, if you do care about controlling our border and our national sovereignty, then Trump is the person that stands for that. There's just two choices here, and there couldn't be more stark on that particular one issue.
Yeah, okay? And I think that has me personally, I've said this for months now, and I believe that is, or at least for me, but I feel like it could be nationally as well. That's got to be
right at the top.
Right at the top, and it continues to be at the top. As far as bipartisan, or I see it bipartisan.
The general public.
It's
starting to affect. Well, it's
affects everybody.
Starting to affect people. And go ahead, Steve. Next story.
All right. We go from the production of West Side Story breaking out in Chicago to National Health Service in England. Socialized medicine. Do any of our candidates in favor of socialized medicine over here?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's in deep financial trouble in England. This is the National Health Service. By the way, during the London Olympics, I recall their opening ceremonies was nothing but a love song to their National Health Service, which now is in deep trouble. But so to save money, this is what they're doing. They've found that the NHS Trust is pushing English-speaking patients to the back of the line and prioritizing those in need of an interpreter in order to avoid additional charges from the interpreter.
So let me get this straight. The nationalized, socialized medical system that the UK has had for decades, all right, it is in financial trouble because they're letting in a lot of undocumented people and a lot of immigrants, and it is swamping the system.
Yeah.
Well, where else do we see that happening?
I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even have socialized medicine.
You hear about that going on in the U.S. all the time because the people who come to the U.S. illegally don't have health insurance, and many emergency rooms, so they go to the emergency room.
Right.
And the emergency rooms in many places are forbidden legally from turning people away.
Right.
And I can see why,
Sure.
Your calling is.
Yeah, even if you can't pay, you should be able to go to the emergency
room.
Right.
Yeah, so they go to the emergency room in many of these places.
But hospitals traditionally have paid for those services for people who can't afford it in the emergency room. They've paid for it or covered it from the people who do pay.
Yeah.
Which is us, our insurance. Yes. Steve, we got 1 minute left. Do you have anything just to shine the light on the goodness of humanity? Is there anything? You got nothing in your stack left?
Well, I got stuff in my stack, but nothing that does the
we could go back to the cats and dogs.
Yeah,
but we kind of exhausted that, didn't we?
Yeah. That's just ripe with so many potential problems of speech that we might encounter. You know what I'm saying? We might, for instance, bark up the wrong tree.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We might say,
for example,
for example, you need to guard your pets. You know what I'm saying? Keep them safe.
That's right.
This
is a safe zone. My backyard is a safe zone.
According to the Babylon Bee, the new poll shows Kamala Harris with a huge lead among deranged assassins.
Dark.
The Babylon Bee last week had several hilarious headlines. I really don't know how they do that day after day after day. I mean, they've got a team of clever folks.
I spent the last couple minutes in silence trying to do everything I can to get silicon back in this discussion. I can't do it. I've tried all I can.
Well,
there I did. I just did it.
Yeah.
You did. You got back in
Got it
there.
back
Way
in.
to go.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good work.
Yeah.
I'm sure somewhere in this country there is a Silicon Valley.
Yes.
We just don't know about
We don't know.
It's in L.A.
Silicon.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's in
Yeah.
LA.
Yeah, that's
It's in
one way to
LA.
look at it. That's one way to look
Thank
at
you,
it.
Steve.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Wesley. I want to thank Fred Jackson for bringing some
Riveting and righteous radio.
some professionalism to this decorum.
It may be here.
Our thanks to Brent Creeley, Abraham Hamilton III, and his kids. I want to thank them. And we'll see you back here tomorrow, everybody.